Good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to Monday. This is the last week of October, and we get to hit November on Friday. So, hey, as we head into this last week of the month, we'll see some things on the 31st as people rebalance their portfolios. We've got a lot of earnings coming in this week, so stay tuned as we look at what those are and how those may impact our our markets going forward. Hey, don't forget that in this world we live in, there are so many things that are out of our control. However, you can take control of your investment portfolio by knowing the amount of risk you have and making sure that it lines up with the amount of risk you need to have in your portfolio. Give us a call at 863-382-0037 to schedule your core retirement analysis. And with that, we got Dave coming up next.
Tell her about it. William Joel and the boys in the band there. Good morning. It's 8:40 now, 20 before 9.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.
Absolutely. I got a friend who was pounding on the table over the weekend saying, by gosh, I want the stocks to go up all the time. Sorry, didn't happen last week. Let's see if we can get a beat as to what's likely to go on this week with Phillip Statler from Statler Financial Services in downtown Sebring. Phillip, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Dave. Hope everybody had a great weekend seeing all those kids dressed up in costumes and had a lot of people downtown on Friday. So it was quite the weekend.
Halloween on Friday. It was a big crowd downtown. I was disappointed. I ended up buying my usual candy for 200, which is kind of the biggest number I get for trick-or-treaters. Only got about a dozen, so I brought my extra candy in, and I figure I'm going to let my coworkers' teeth rot out this week because I didn't have many. I'm a feast or famine neighborhood. I guess it's dependent upon how many of my neighbors turn their lights on as to whether or not the parents go down the street. I finally went out in the front and sat in the driveway for a while, let the kids driving by know that I'm there, and I still only got about a dozen, so about 8:30, I shut the light off and said, well, the heck with it. I need to go to bed anyway. Back up to Friday at on the markets. It was a down day for the Dow and the S&P. Dow lost 260 points. Standard & Poor's was a little flatter than that. They were only down 1.7. And NASDAQ had a good day, and I think we can blame Elon Musk and Tesla on that positive. They were up 103 points on Friday. So I'm going to call it an overall down day because only one stock pretty much drove everything up, didn't they?
Well, that's true. And I think if we look at that, if we look at the overall week, I think that all the indexes except for maybe the NASDAQ were actually down for the week.
That's absolutely right. The Dow and the Standard & Poor's both booked weekly losses, and that's the first time in quite a while, which is why I was making that flippant remark about my friend who figures the market always is supposed to go up, and he's profoundly unimpressed at the fact that the blue chips actually went down last week.
Well, hey, they can't keep going up. I mean, they got to go down so they can go back up, and that's just the nature of the beast. And so, we did see NASDAQ though hit a new all-time high last week.
Yeah, that's right. We start the morning out on NASDAQ at 18,518.61. That is without a doubt not chopped liver, and it's nosebleed territory. And still, in perspective, 42,114.40 on the Dow and 5808.12 on the S&P. That's still nosebleed territory, especially when you look at the multiples involved, isn't it?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was reading an article yesterday about what to look for this week, and that this could be a very volatile week just because of earnings seasons. We're getting a lot of the Magnificent Seven will report this week, and it's very important that we see the price earnings ratio start to line up with what the price is on those shares. And if it doesn't, then that could add some disappointment to the markets.
Yeah, it's a volatile and I would say an almost risky week in the process. Step number one, you mentioned that a lot of the Magnificent Seven, Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, they're all reporting this week. Now you add on the government data dump that's coming up with jobs week ahead of us. We're going to get the JOLTS report tomorrow. We're going to get the private sector employment on Wednesday, jobless claims Thursday, and then the proverbial monthly unemployment report from the government on Friday that invariably gives everybody a reason to sit on pins and needles. This week could go big time one way or the other, depending upon what we see out of the combination of reports and the government reports out.
Well, that's absolutely true, Dave. I mean, this week, not only that, it's the end of a month, right? So you throw all that stuff together, and it just adds up to a lot of volatility.
And we got a lot of the hedge funds that are looking to balance out their statements at the end of the month so that their clients know they're working for them, and that means a few weird changes could take place just on bet hedging, if nothing else.
Well, that's right. You got options and expiring, so there's just a lot of stuff happening this week.
we sound like we don't know what's happening, and in truth, nobody does when you get into a week this strange down the line. Hey, the Magnificent Seven, we talk about the shift out of tech and whatnot down the line. The tech has kind of lost some of its bloom. Found an interesting chart this morning. The Magnificent Seven, those proverbial seven big tech stocks, they're all positive for 2024. But if you wanted to take a look at the Standard & Poor's 500, maybe an index fund would have served you better because NVIDIA is the champion of the Magnificent Seven. They're up like 170% for the year. But out of the seven big tech stocks that everybody's talking about as glamorous, only NVIDIA, Meta, and Amazon so far this year have managed to beat the Standard & Poor's 500. If you want evidence, there's a little bit of a shift away from an emphasis on tech stocks per se. That might give you some evidence for that point, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and we saw that, those giant stocks were kind of running out of steam, earlier this month and towards the end of last month.
Yeah, it doesn't make Apple a bad investment, but at the same time, it's not necessarily beating the blue chips at this point. So if you say, hey, I'm in Apple, I know I'm going to be rich later, tain't necessarily the case because maybe they are reaching a little bit of a peak for the moment.
It could very well be. There's going to be ebbs and flows. And I mean, if you think back of NVIDIA, right? If you look back a year ago, 2 years ago, where was NVIDIA trading at? Nowhere near where it is today. And at some point, that stock is going to lose its luster, and it's going to start to fall down.
Yeah, heck, a couple of years ago, only those of us that were hardware geeks knew what NVIDIA was, let alone being the highest flying stock on the market.
Yeah, and the big thing is, Dave, is when. Nobody knows that. That's the thing. When are things going to start to back off? And that's the big unknown. I mean, if we knew that question, if we knew the answer to that question, we'd all be doing well in the marketplace.
Absolutely. And there is a cycle to be involved. You and I talked about this a couple of years ago when the market started holding the quote-unquote tech dinosaurs to the same standard that they hold General Motors, Ford, and the old regular smokestack stocks. Eventually, the market ends up saying, okay, boys, we're stuck buying the future. Now we want you to actually show us some present. And they start holding those stocks to a normal price-earnings ratio, to a normal, hey, you got to make some money once in a while number and whatnot. And that caused the death of an awful lot of high-flying tech stocks a few years ago when we started actually saying, boys, are you going to make any money anytime soon? Some of them said, well, maybe not, and we don't even know who they are anymore.
Exactly. At some point, you gotta, earnings have got to meet the stock price, and that price earnings has to be a measurement that eventually comes through.
Yep. Talk about companies for whom that standard's being held. You and I had two separate stories on Boeing. Friday afternoon, I saw this one come out, and you mentioned it, that Boeing is now going to be issuing some new stock, which strikes me as close to desperation, given the fact that they're really on the ropes in terms of stock price, but they need money, don't they?
I guess they really do. They're trying to strengthen the company's finances. They are launching a stock offering of $19 billion. And so the current stockholders, they're not happy about that day. Their stock's down almost 1.9%.
Yeah, I can't imagine why. Let's issue a whole bunch of new stock while my stock's on the ropes to begin with, all right?
Exactly. That's just doesn't make much sense, I guess.
Well, when you need the money, you need the money. The other item that I came up with was now they're talking about selling their space business. Boeing is going to take the Starship side of their business, and they're thinking about selling it, which, once again, you got something on the ropes after they got plastered so much by stranding the astronauts up at the space station, having to bring the capsule back to Earth unattended. Maybe we'll sell the business now. It's not exactly buying low and selling high in Boeing's case lately, is
No,
it?
it is exact opposite, Dave. You got to think that you would sell when things are going well, not when they're in the tank. And right now, Boeing's space division has not overwhelmed people with their results.
You're putting that you're putting that so mildly, Phillip. Other tidbits going on. Apple had some preliminary numbers out there. iPhone sales in China slipped last quarter. It might be kind of a sort of an earnings warning. And Huawei sales have soared up in China. So Apple's travails on the Chinese market haven't improved much, from what I understand. That's not going to bode well when they get around to reporting, is it?
No, it won't. Hey, Robinhood came out with you can now you can now trade on whether or not you think Kamala Harris or Donald Trump is going to win the presidential election.
Oh,
Robinhood has an
geez.
option now that you can go buy for that.
I've seen those betting markets out there, and the Department of Justice doesn't like it one tiny little bit. But now, actually, a relatively established firm is selling those bets as well. Are they bookies or are they brokers?
Yeah. Well, some people would think they're the same.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah, depending upon how you look at it. Any other tidbits you've got out to start the morning, sir?
Hey, not tidbits. I got one little piece of earnings information from a chip maker called ON. That's ON Semiconductors, and they beat the street by 2 cents a share. Came in at 99 cents a share. Beat on revenue as well, and so they're trading up 2.6% this morning, Dave. That's really the only thing I've got reporting right now this morning.
You know, got a bunch of household names that'll be reporting later on today and after the market closes. So we're going to have a lot to talk about as the week progresses, but it's kind of a usual Monday at the moment. The Friday closes indicated blue chips had a bad day on Friday, and the high-flying stocks like, looking at you, Tesla, had a good one. 45 minutes before we open this morning, what are we looking at?
Dave, it looks like right now all the indexes are gaining quite a bit. We've got the Dow up 0.4%. The S&P 500 is up between 5 and 6 tenths, as well as the Nasdaq 100 is up 0.75%. The Russell 2000 is not going to get left out today, up about 0.6%. On the other side of the coin, Dave, we've got nothing but red ink. We've got the silver trading down 1/4 point, still pretty high. It's $33.60 an ounce. Gold's down 1/3%. Crude oil, get this, Dave, down 6.3% this morning to $67.26 a barrel. Evidently, because Israel did not target Iran's oil production facilities, which I guess maybe the original intention was that they thought maybe they would, and that would drive price of oil up. But this has got the price coming down because they didn't attack those.
Our government was leaning on them to not do it, but then again, the government in Israel will blaze their own trail, and I'll take the decrease in the price of oil any day, especially since I'm down to a 1/4 tank of gas this morning. Overseas markets, the Asian Rim, generally happy with at least the rumors of more stimulus coming out of the Chinese central bank. The mainland markets were up by 0.75% at the close this morning. Japan was happy because quiet is good in Japan, so they were up almost 2%. We had green ink across the board. Over in Europe, they're a little bit more tentative. I mean, it's not a sell-off, but we're down by between 0.09 and 0.2% pretty much across the board over in the European community halfway through their trading day. Getting a retirement plan together should start in anybody's life earlier than most of us think about it. How do I get a hold of you to get a plan so I know I can retire, Phillip?
Dave, that's why I developed the core retirement design to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-382-0037 to schedule your core retirement analysis. And then check out the Statler Financial Radio Show this weekend, 6 a.m. and noon on Saturday, 10 a.m. Sunday morning on Highlands News Talk, 7:30 a.m. and 95.3 FM.
Hey, and you and me together again with a whole pant load of information tomorrow morning about the same time here on Light. See you then.
All right, man. Have a great day.
Thank you, Phillip. It's 105.7 Light FM and Statler Financial Services, Phillip Statler.
Hey, folks, I hope you had a great weekend. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, have a great day. Bye now.